What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Bass and Baits. Today we're going to revisit our best bass baits for winter video, and we're going to go in depth on one of my favorite big fish catchers in the winter, and that's going to be a football jig. Okay, you're going to be able to tell a football jig by the shape of the head. It's going to look like a football pretty well. And if you've ever noticed, if you take a football and you just roll it, it doesn't just want to roll straight, you know, it wants to wobble. If it hits something, it'll spin in a circle. So that's one of the advantages of a football head. It comes through rocks pretty well. It keeps contact with the bottom really well. And when it runs into something, instead of just coming straight back to you, if it hits something, it's going to want to kick off or kick this way. And that's the action you're looking for, just something subtle like that to get you that strike you're looking for. Let's go into the colors that I use. If I'm fishing it in clear water, I keep all my jig colors pretty simple. If I ever want to get, fancy, I'm going to do that with my trailers. But I'm going to stick with, in clear water, I'm going to throw, basically I'm either going to stay with a straight green pumpkin, I'm going to throw a brown, or I'm going to throw a combination of the two. Okay. If it's dirty or stained water, I'm going to use a black blue, or a black blue with some purple. That's pretty easy. So you don't have to go out, you don't have to buy 50 colors of these things. If you'll stay with those, you're going to catch fish. I don't care where you're at. If you're north, south, east, west, you're going to catch them with those colors. Now the sizes I use, I fish these in deeper style waters. Now deep's a relative term, so where you're at, 10 foot might be deep, where you're at, 40 foot might be deep. But here's the rules that I use. If I'm fishing a football jig in say 1 foot to 10 foot of water, I'm going to go with a 1/2 ounce. If I go with 10 to 20 foot, I'm going to step it up to a 3/4. If I can't get by, I want to go with as light as I can and keep bottom contact. But I'll normally go to a 3/4, and then anything over 20, I'm going to either stay with that 3/4 or I'm going to move up to a 1 ounce. That's about as far as I go, and I pretty well can cover the whole depth there with those three. So that's the sizes I want you to start off with. When it comes to trailers, I do not want a lot of action, swimming, kicking action on these, because when I'm fishing a football jig, it's going to be in the colder months when the water's cool, the fish are less active, the bait's less active, the crawdads, everything's moving slow. So normally what I'll throw is just any style of creature style bait. This is one I pour myself, but you can use, a Missile D-bomb. I'll put a link in to some of those for you guys to look at. And I want to leave it pretty big. So normally what I'll do, I'll just bite off the end of it, and then I just want to thread it up on there. Okay, so I'm going to try to stay right in the middle as much as I can. Bring it out in the middle, push it up on there good. So I want to be a big chunky profile, something like this. Now I don't trim my skirts much on football jigs. If you trim your skirt, it makes it react faster. The shorter the skirt, the faster the strands are going to react in the water. And I don't want a fast reaction down there. I want it to be slow. I want it to be when I stop that jig, that skirt will just slowly flare out. So that's what I'm looking at. I normally don't trim them unless it's just excessively long, and I don't want it to interfere with my pinchers back here. So that's the trailers you want. Now let's get into where I like to fish a football jig. When I come to a lake, normally, like I said, I'm going to fish it in the cold weather, cold temperatures, and I'm going to look for 45-degree banks. Something where the bank's coming in at a good 45-degree angle. That way there's some good fall. And I prefer to have rocky banks, or at least a hard bottom. That's where the fish want to get. They want to get down and set on that. Plus that's where, your crawfish are going to be. A lot of your bait fish, but especially crawfish, they look for those rocky bottoms. The big chunk rock, it gives them a spot to hide. And that's where I'm going to be. If not, if your lake doesn't have a lot of rock, if it's mostly a mud bottom or something, you can still fish it. Just fish your channel banks, your deeper banks. So now let's get into how I fish it. Okay, I fish it two different ways. The first way is if I'm just looking for fish and I'm covering water. I'm pre-fishing for a tournament. However you want to go there. What I want to do is I set my boat away from the bank. I want to make a cast to the bank, or I want to make a long cast, as long cast as possible. And I want to let it fall on a controlled slack line, which means I got a bow in it, but what I don't want to do is throw it out, let it hit the water, and immediately engage the reel. Because what that does is it tight lines that bait, and instead of that bait falling straight down, when I tight line it, engage the reel, it's going to hit the water and it's going to pendulum back to me this way. So I'm not going to get to fish this part. So like I said, you cast it out, control slack line. When I finish my cast, I'm going to pull out a little slack at the top. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to chase that bait to the bottom. Real slow, just a small slack, because sometimes you will get hit on the initial fall. So if I got a controlled slack, I got that bow in it, that line will jump. When it jumps, then you reel down, you feel the fish, you set the hook. Okay. Now once I follow it to the bottom, control slack, so we got a straight fall. Hits the bottom, settles in. I'll let it settle there for just a second. And then I'm just going to start a slow retrieve. Just a steady retrieve. I'm going to point my rod though. I normally don't point it right at it. Say my bait's right here. I'm going to be at about the 10 o'clock position or the 2 o'clock position, with just a little bend here in my rod. And then I'm just going to slowly reel that rod, okay, or that reel. I'm just dragging it along the bottom until I run into something. Say I hit a rock or a stump, anything. If I feel something that I hit, I'm just going to shake it there for a little bit. That allows the skirt to do its work. Your crawls are up, moving around a little bit. And as you pick it up, a lot of times it'll want to stand up on its end. It'll stand up. So I'm just kind of rocking it a little bit. Don't get bit. I'm going to work it up over that piece. Again, I'm going to go right back to it. A steady, slow reel, making sure I keep contact with the bottom. And that's where the weights are going to come in. If you feel like you're losing the bottom, go up. If you're getting hung a whole lot, go down. So you could even fish, you can fish that 1/2 ounce in 20 foot of water. You just got to slow down and make sure you keep contact with it. Now, once I get a couple bites, I think I'm in an area that has some fish. Another way I like to fish it, cast it out. Again, controlled slack line. Let it hit the bottom. And then I'm going to work it more of like an up and down. So I'm going to drag that bait along, feeling everything down there. I come to a rock or something, I'm going to shake it again. This time I'm going to pop it. I'm going to pop it up. That jig's going to come up, fall right back down. That's when I get a majority of my bites, is when I pop that jig loose from something. I'm shaking it, I feel like that fish is coming down, he's looking at it. And when you pop it, it's like that thing's getting away from him, and that's when they'll grab it. Now I get into the equipment I use. A 7 foot to 7'6" medium heavy action rod. I do that because I want that heavy backbone to it, but I want that soft tip. I want that soft tip to be able to load that bait up, make a good long cast. Then once it hits the bottom, I want that soft tip so I can feel what's down there. Okay? And then I want to pair it with a high-speed reel. And I know this whole thing's about fishing slow, and you're thinking, why do I need a high-speed reel? When that fish, if that fish hits me and it's way out there, I got to be able to get that slack pulled up. So I want a high-speed reel to do that. I feel the bite, I set the hook, he's way out there, I can reel down, I can get on him real quick. And another thing I like to do once I hook a fish with a football jig, especially if I'm throwing 3/4 and 1 ounce, is I don't give him much play out there. I mean, I reel on him. I want to keep that hook pinned in there, and I want to keep him coming this way. That football jig with that big weight out in front, it gives that fish an advantage. If he comes out of the water and he shakes, this big hunk of lead is flopping around and it has a chance of coming out. Now, if you'll keep good pressure on that fish and you get him all the way to the boat, look at him when he's in the boat. Don't enjoy the fight. I mean, I get him in with it. I don't want to mess around. So that's the advantage of the high-speed reel. Now, the bite detection on these, sometimes they can be outright jarring, and I think that's from when I'm snapping that those fish, they think that crawfish is getting away, and they hit it. I mean, you feel it. It's a good bite. The other times, what you'll notice is that bait's coming right back to you. You'll go to pick it up, and it just kind of feels spongy. And you know, that line it'll be over here a little bit. That fish has already grabbed it. He's moved off. And like I said, reel down, set the hook. So, like I said, the football jig is probably my #1 big fish bait in the wintertime. I can cover quite a bit of water with it. You know, it's good and slow. The bulk of it, it just catches big fish. I do really well with it. So, I hope this video helped you guys out. If it did, if you would, leave a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about it, feel free to leave them down there in the comment section. I'll be glad to answer them for you guys. We'll see you next time.